Hey guys, it's Addie from Whimsy of Things here. Today I would like to swatch some inks that I got from a recent order. An order I would like to call the Oops, I guess I ordered all gray ink. So there's a couple of places I like to get samples from primarily. One of them is Vaness Pen Shop. They have a very wide variety of samples. They're 4 milliliters, so that gives me a good opportunity to try them in both a regular and a flex pen and maybe another fill on top of that. So I really like getting samples from there. And I also like to get samples from the secondhand market or the Reddit pen swap thread. These samples that I'm going to be trying today came from there. I looked at the listing and there was quite a lot of different options on there, and I went through to pick and choose the amount that kind of equals what I like to spend on samples in a month. I haven't ordered samples in a few months, actually. I was interested in this order because there were 4 Birmingham Pen Company inks that I really wanted to try. Sterling Silver, Lunar Dust, Ploughman's Pebble, and Saltmarsh. Diamine Solstice was in there. I really wanted to try that. Robert Oster's Motor Oil was in there, and I really wanted to try that. And Robert Oster Soft Kitty, Warm Kitty. So there were some very specific inks I was interested in trying. So I added a bunch to the list. And then when I got them, I realized I basically ordered 9 different gray inks. One could make an argument for Ploughman's Pebble and Saltmarsh to be more brown leaning. But in any case, I'm going to go ahead and use this sheet here. I'm going to do a wash sample here, a little spoon spread out swatch here, and the name of the ink here. So it'll be pretty straightforward. This paper is just a mixed media paper. Show you the notebook. It's just this Canson XL mixed media paper. I like it for when I do washes. So that's what we'll be using today. I'll do the washes with the brushes, and I will do the writing with this Kakamori. It's a stainless steel Kakamori nib. So I'm going to start with this Birmingham Pen Company Sterling Silver. This is a lighter gray ink, if I am understanding correctly. I want it to be fairly wet. It's interesting. So much pink in that. Huh. All right, let's write the name without smearing what we wrote already. That will be the trick. Should have done the writing first, and this is a smaller space, so I'm just going to write B, P, Co, Sterling. Such a strange color. Huh. What do you guys think? I mean, it's really strange. Quite different on this Kikuyo business paper than it is over there, but again, that one is still drying. So but the red tones are almost entirely gone out of that already, when they're still quite present in that. The next ink is the Birmingham Pen Company Lunar Dust, which my understanding is that it's a little bit darker gray than what we just used. And I'll go ahead and prep the wash square. All right, let's do the writing first this time. That's a nice gray. It's very nice. Let me move this to the side temporarily, and I will do this little writing sample here on this paper. I quite like that one. It looks like it could be dark in the writing, and it's not as dark as it appears. That looks almost black, but it could be a drying situation. All right, it's Lunar Dust. Then we will do Birmingham Pen Company's Ploughman's Pebble. Ploughman's Pebble, according to their site, is supposed to have some, not only like a chroma shading properties, but it's supposed to be an ink that will look quite different depending on your light source. Like it will look, I have an example of it. I'll put it up on the screen here, where it's supposed to look very different depending upon what kind of light you're in. This one and the Saltmarsh are both like that. So I was interested in trying them. Do you think that they're both quite light though? So we'll have to see for ourselves. Sometimes their swatches are a little difficult. So this is quite brown toned. Still got a grayish tint to it. I don't know that I would call it a gray. Even though that is fairly brown, it's a very pretty grayish brown that is not too dark either. I actually like that color quite a bit. What is that color reminding me of? Chinchilla fur? Maybe. It's Ploughman's Pebble, Birmingham Pen Company. The other ink that they describe on their site is looking different in different lights is, well, there's a few now, but this one is Saltmarsh. I actually don't remember. I want to say it's like a greenish, grayish, greenish. Could be totally wrong though. I'll have to see. That looks almost like that, but with a little more gray. Go away as it dries. But this and this look very close right now. Maybe that's a little more gray. Then the last Birmingham Pen Company ink that I'm going to try today is Antique Aubergine, which is also a grayish red color. This feels like a darker version of sterling silver before it dried. All right, so that is all the Birmingham Pen Company inks. They are quite similar. I do see a difference between these two now. When they dry, I'll be able to see a better difference too, but it's very, very similar, all of them. The exception probably being Lunar Dust, but that's just a little darker. All right, so then we have two Robert Oster inks. We have, the first one is Motor Oil, which I wanted to try in comparison to the Birmingham Pen Company's Bearing Grease. I don't think that they're the same color, but they're both inks that are related to sort of industrial products. And I think they both have a greenish, a darker ink with like a greenish hue to it. But let's just see. I'd say there's a solid comparison there, actually. It's a little more of an olive green in Motor Oil than in Bearing Grease. Like a more brown leaning green, but I feel like it has that sort of dirty feeling that Bearing Grease has. It's got that pinkish. It's interesting. Let's see some writing. Yeah, if you're in a place where you can't get Bearing Grease and you like the idea of having some sort of filthy, dirty ink, Motor Oil does it. It does it pretty well, actually. I may like it, maybe not more than Bearing Grease, but on the same level. It definitely has that dirty, used quality. This is really nice. Dirty inks. Let's go back here. This is number 6. Yeah, that's a good one. It does compare. Clearly not the same color, not exactly the same color, but there is the same feeling there. After it dries, I'll pull out the Bearing Grease sample to show you guys the difference. All right, and then the other Robert Oster ink that I have is Soft Kitty, Warm Kitty, which I don't believe is available anymore, but I could be wrong. I saw this one on Simonet's channel and I was interested in it because it's gray and I like grays. And it looks like I couldn't get it anywhere. That's like a chroma shading blue gray, a little bit of pink in there. It's an interesting color and not a great swatch. It's a very pretty gray. See it on paper. That is doing the coolest stuff right there. Look at that. I like that one a lot. So we have 2 left. The remaining 2 are both shimmers. Start with Diamine Solstice, which I believe is fairly dark. I think that's got like a dark teal blue shimmer in it. See how that pops out when it dries. It's a nice ink to write with. It's quite a... flows nice. All right, then the very last ink that I have from this order. Oh man, did I just make a mess? All right, well, there's 1 ink left, so I'm just gonna roll with it. The very last ink that I have for this order is Colorverse, Goulet Pens exclusive, Witch by Starlight. Nope, Witch by Moonlight. Witch by Starlight, I believe, is a darker version than this. This is the lighter of the 2. I have decimated myself. I guess I could do this while I get this ready. Okay, that's quite light. Pretty purple toned. I'm glad I'm trying that. That's much less light than I thought it would be from looking at it online. So I guess I'd have to see it in an actual pen. Move that off to the side. Do this little writing sample. I'll let these dry, wash my hands, and come back and we can talk about these a little bit. Oh, I forgot to do hearts. Life goes on. I'll do those as ink pens. All right, this has been drying for at least a couple hours and we are completely dry here. So this ended up being a collection of various different types of gray with different undertones. And I actually really like this group of colors. These are the kinds of colors that I respond to really quite a bit. I always have at least 1 gray ink generally in this white fountain pen revolution pen that I do most of my writing with. And the funny thing about gray ink is it has been that way since junior high school for me. I used to specifically go out and buy gray felt tip markers to use in school. I'm not really sure why I've always just responded to gray ink. There's not one color in here I don't like. The sterling silver, you can see now since it's dried that it lost a lot of that red undertone that it had before. It is still present, I think, especially in the swatch, but the actual color of the ink has dried to more of a gray, and it is darker than I thought it would be. However, if you look at the writing sample here, this is the writing sample. On this paper, it is quite a bit lighter than here. Now, my Kakamori nib may have been oversaturated, and that's probably what is causing some of this sort of spreading. And I think this might be a more accurate representation of the actual writing. It reminds me quite a bit of the Kobe Pearl Silver. This is the Kobe Pearl Silver, and you can see that it's got the same, ignoring this writing sample, but sort of the same tone a bit. Come back to me. And in the writing here, this is a little more bluish, I think, but the actual darkness value is very close. So that is the Sterling Silver by Birmingham Pen Company. Lunar Dust, I think, is my favorite, and I believe that I will get a bottle. And for some reason on this paper, I'm going to bring you in pretty close. Do you see these polka dots that show up in there? Some of the other ones have a few too, like this and this, but the pores or the grain of the paper just make this really neat dotted pattern, which, since it's called Lunar Dust, it sort of fits. There's a bit of a yellow in here when it's spread out. It's quite a bit darker in the swatch and in the writing, but in a pen here, that's a very nice medium gray, and that's the kind of gray that I like to write with in my journal. This Aurora gray, I used up the whole sample of this very quickly because it's just that tone, this mid gray tone that I really, really like a lot. It's dark enough to read, but it is definitely gray and not black. So that, I believe, is one of my favorites out of this whole group. And my favorite gray ink is this Dominant Industry Downpour. This is more blue. It's a similar tone. Really like that Lunar Dust a lot. These I'm a little confused about. These do not look like the website really at all. And I'm not saying they're wrong, that I got the wrong inks. They're much lighter on the site. And if you look at the writing sample for both, you can tell that this is more of a gray and this is more of a brown. They're both what I would consider a gray though. And this is a warm gray with yellowish undertones. And this is more of like a brownish or a red gray. I haven't taken it outside to look to see. I'm not seeing the color difference that they mentioned on the site. They're both very pretty and they look great with the rest of these inks, but they are odd compared to the site. This one is closer to the site. Antique Aubergine is a very pretty color. It is still, in my opinion, gray, and even in the writing, it's still gray, but it's a very pink gray. This color is almost like what this color was before it dried. It stayed this color, and in fact, I think got a little more purple. but it's, again, a very nice value tone-wise in that it's not too light, but it still reads as gray. Robert Oster motor oil, really, I love what it does here. This is just crazy how it washes out, but it does give me the Birmingham Pen Company Bearing Grease vibes. I'll put a link up to that review in case you haven't seen it. It looks dirty and it's grungy and it looks like used motor oil. And in the writing, I think it looks a little more brown like motor oil than it does on either of these swatches. It pulls some of these tones into this. And to compare it to Bearing Grease is got much more of a green base than the Robert Oster motor oil. But if you're looking for the feeling, the same kind of feeling, you can't get Birmingham Pen Company inks where you are for whatever reason. The Robert Oster motor oil definitely has that same sort of feeling. I mean, in the swatch here, they're very similar. They're very similar. And in the writing, they're similar, but again, this is a little more brown. Still the same feeling. This has a bit of a sheen. It kind of looks like it might have a tiny bit of a sheen in it. You can see like right around here. There's a bit of a sheen. It's not a dupe. It's not the same. It's the same feeling though. So I like the Robert Oster motor oil. It was also very pleasant to write with. I felt like it had a really good wetness level. It wasn't dry feeling at all. All right, and then the Robert Oster Soft Kitty, Warm Kitty. I love this swatch right here, the purpley gray. It's like the purple toned gray, while still being gray and not more towards purple than this. And the tones, when you wash it out, really beautiful. The blue and the pink, it's really nice. It is a little less exciting just in the writing. It has some shading, but none of these pinky tones are really coming through. So I won't be massively sad that I can't necessarily buy a bottle of that. Just a little bit sad, slightly sad. All right, and then the two shimmers. We have Solstice by Diamine. It is a very subtle but pretty shimmer. You can just barely see the shimmer on the sample. And I think it's just very fine particles and they're a light blue. And the tone is quite pretty. It is a little dark. That's something I knew going into it, that it was a almost black shimmer. It's not as exciting in writing, but I find that with shimmers, the Kakamori nib, it'll pick up the shimmers, but usually you can't really tell what's going on until it's in a pen. Then lastly, the Colorverse Witch by Moonlight. This is a gorgeous shimmer. The pink shimmer against this pink tone gray. Really nice. Does get glitter everywhere though. Whereas the Solstice, this is much more subtle and behaves. So if you like the shimmer, you're into the shimmer, you like the glitter, this is great. If you're not into it and you like something subtle, much, much better. I did get the impression when I looked at this ink swatch on the site that this was lighter in writing than it's actually showing here. This is close to the edge of a little bit too light to write with to be usable in writing, but it's dark enough. This is really beautiful here. What happens with both the washed out and the swatch, the purple, really, really pretty. Again, I'm not seeing as much shimmer with the Kakamori nib, but that seems to be kind of how it goes. So there you have it. Here are the results of my accidental gray ink order. Should probably swatch all the gray inks I have someday, but that would be quite a long video. So which one do you like the best? I'm leaning towards Lunar Dust. What do you think? Thanks again for stopping by to go through these gray inks. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.